space, and I would say obviously with regard to business and technology in general, I see a wonderful window of opportunity. My goal here this evening is to share with you my experiences and lessons learned as to what is it that the most successful organizations do with regard to breaking into the U.S. market and growing into the U.S. market. I've also had the opportunity to work very closely over the years with buyers, and I want to share with you and help you leverage the buyer's perspective. Because at the end of the day, as my first sales manager told me, it's less about what we're selling, and it's more about what they're buying. So I want to share with you both sales and marketing perspective, and again, what's on the mind of the buyer. I'll have some data to share with you. I must say, when Robert originally invited me here, he mentioned that there was a small presentation that he asked me to give this evening, and then a larger presentation tomorrow. So my concern was that maybe this would be my tryout, right? So if I didn't do well here tonight, and maybe I would be uninvited tomorrow. So Robert, I hope I do.
Who told you that? We were not supposed to tell you that.
So I hope I do well for my rehearsal here this evening. I have a handful of slides. I'm not sure if there are too many. So what I did was I actually broke them into two decks. So I'm less concerned about covering every slide. I'm more concerned about answering your questions. So feel free to interrupt, ask questions, and Robert has promised to help make sure I tailor my discussion to your particular needs. So the first slide is really more, the first two slides I believe are more introductory slides, and it's about the Outsourcing Institute, and this is less of a commercial and more of giving you a sense of the context from which we draw our conclusions. I started OI in 1993. If you were in the business back then, or you think back that far, outsourcing was not as popular as it is now. And many, certainly in the States, felt that outsourcing was really a knee-jerk reaction to a weak economy in the United States, and that it would go away. My feeling was that outsourcing was here to stay, and that it would grow, and that there would be an ongoing need for a neutral network, a network where buyers could go for information on how to procure outsourcing, and where service providers could go for best practices on how to build their business and how to promote their business. So fortunately for us, I like to say we were half smart and half lucky because things really took off. And as Robert says, we do have 70,000 members. However, they're global, as you know, and not limited to the U.S. We're about 45% North America, and the balance of our network is really everywhere else. Just a quick second slide. And these are, this is my credibility slide, just to give you a sense of some of the companies who are members of OI. These are buyer members. I figured that this would be a good slide to show you. We are not limited to Fortune 500 organizations, although just about every Fortune 500 organization is represented within our network. And as you can see by this slide, there's really no limitation as to vertical industry. There's pharmaceutical companies here, manufacturing organizations, media, government, technology, electronics, and no surprise to you all that all organizations, for the most part, are either outsourcing currently pretty actively or considering it, which is obviously good for you in the space. Please, thank you. Okay, so this is kind of my good news, bad news slide, and so I don't mean to start off and create anxiety for each of you. But I do want to give you a clear sense that the majority of those who attempt to establish a presence in the U.S. market struggle or fail. And I will really analyze a bit with you what those factors are that drive success or failure. And at the end of the session, hopefully I can provide you with a couple of percentage points of increased success probability. I would also say consider this the beginning of a discussion. I'd be happy to give any of you my card, or you can communicate directly through outsourcing provider moments ago who told me that their biggest challenge now is actually keeping up with demand in one particular sector that they're in. This particular sector is recruitment process outsourcing. It's not technology related, but it gives you a sense of how strong certain sectors of the marketplace are. They're just deluged now with requests for proposals and responding and being able to tackle all the business they want without running out of resources and without having a negative impact on their quality. Those are great problems to have, but it is a challenge. So next slide, please. Okay, so why are the 75% failing? Well, there's a bunch of reasons, and I did my best here to try to nail it down to a handful where I see a commonality. And it's no coincidence that the first one is really limited knowledge of the U.S. marketplace. I see some of you nodding heads, and we do business differently than you do. But you know what? That's not unique. You do business somewhat differently than we do, and they do it slightly differently in Asia. They do it slightly different in Africa. So if you're doing business in any other part of the world, you know, part of the challenge, not the sole challenge, but part of it is how familiar are you with the norms of how we do business? That's one challenge, and that's something that it tends not to show up in a business plan, right? How are you going to wrestle with that? It tends not to show up in the sales plan, but it's something that if I would say one common mistake is to not take this very seriously. And we can talk about this further into the discussion. Lack of commitment and investment. There's an article I wrote several years ago that's still one of the more downloaded pieces on our website at outsourcing.com. The title is Don't Dabble. Many players in this space are dabbling. Dabbling is, well, let's just put Robert over there in the corner with a desk while the rest of us sell what we always sell. And then if he just gets a deal or two, then we'll take that money, and then maybe we'll invest that in getting a second person, a second phone, and maybe at that point we'll really rent an office somewhere in the U.S. So it's kind of just being passive and not making the real commitment. It's tough to dabble and succeed in the outsourcing marketplace. There's a significant amount of investment, not only in people, but in time and in patience. I will tell you a quick story. There's a software company that recently announced that was getting into the outsourcing business. And one of the first things they stumbled upon was not how long it takes to get an outsourcing deal, because they were fortunate they got one or two or three fairly early on because of the relationships, but how far into the deal the profit actually is. You know, so when you sell software, unless it's brand new software, if you sell software, you're making margin right up front. That thing was developed and created and shipped and packaged months or years ago, and Microsoft's just sending somebody one new copy, or they're downloading one new copy of Windows, Office, whatever. If you look at the financials of outsourcing, as many of you know, the money is into the deal. It might be 6 months, it might be a year or 6 months, it might be 2 years into the deal when you're going to hit the money. So when owners, you as owners, or your bosses, or somebody in headquarters, they look at outsourcing, they rub their hands together and say, wow, there's a lot of money in this business. These deals are $1 million deals, they're annuity-based, 3-4 years, so let's get into that business. Well, you have to realize that the financial dynamics are different. So those expectations have to be set early on. If you're the owner, you have to set those expectations yourself, or to your board, or to your investors. Or if you're the go-to guy, but there's someone else in the organization that's really driving this, you have to let them know that this is the way it plays out. This software company got in the business, got out of the business. So at the end of the day, what happened was when they had X amount of money to invest, they just kept putting into the software business. Because they kind of knew that. It was a quicker hit for them. So you have to understand that commitment. So no sales and marketing expertise. The majority of technology companies are sorted by technology people. That's not unique to outsourcing. That's just unique to the technology space. Where it gets more complicated in the outsourcing world. It's just that outsourcing is a more complex sale. What you're selling is more complicated. Who you're selling to gets a little more complicated because it's typically more than one person. The advice I would give you is less is more. More is not more. So it's not that your slide says, here's who we are, and these are all the things we do. Look at these 15 bullets of all the things we do in all of these different industries. Number one, the U.S. buyer is not going to believe it. From the back, losing credibility. Best thing you can do is tell them what you're really, really, really good at. Providing this type of service, within this type of vertical, within this type of company. The more you can hone in on that, the greater chance you have. What tends to happen is many organizations, this is by no means limited to Brazil, many organizations break into the U.S. market. They're thinking, okay, how do we maximize our chance at a hit? Well, let's just say we do application development, any kind of application development. We can do traditional stuff, web stuff, dot this, dot that. We can do whatever the vertical. The buyers tell me they don't like that at all. The buyers tell me they're going to check references based on companies that are similar to them. So if they're Citibank, they don't want a reference from a hospital. They won't even take that seriously. They want a reference from another bank. In fact, they want a reference from another global bank. In fact, they want someone where you worked in their global funds transfer. So now, again, here you are, you invested 6-8 months, you're on second and third base with this deal, and they ask for those references, very specifically, you don't have them. You have the hospital over here, you have the manufacturing company over here. So the key is, think about what you're really, really good at, and hone in on that. Less is more. The less you can say you provide, the more you can show specialty, the more deals you will win. Robert, before I move ahead, any comments on anything? Do you agree? Would you add a bullet or two?
Well, I think that the fact that, marketplace knowledge is a key thing. You can only make intelligent decisions if you have very good information. So if you're not seeking to acquire that proper information that can help you make that intelligent decision in how to package yourself and how to showcase your value proposition, most likely you're going to hit the water every time. And when I mean hit the water, é tiro na água mesmo. So I pass it on to you again, Frank.
Okay. Is there any one of you here that sees one missing that you would add, something that you're struggling with? We couldn't have coincidentally hit them all, but is there anyone that you'd like me to expand on before I jump over this slide? One that you're particularly struggling with? Or maybe you disagree with?
Just one question. For how long a company invests in U.S. market to get the first contracts, basically? Because you used to tell for us that there's a lack of commitment and investment. How long a company must support an investment to get the first contracts?
Yeah. So the question is how long is too long, right? So I mean, it's a great question. I don't have the answer. So let me see how I respond to that. I would say the first thing you'd want to get a sense of is think of your sales cycle here in your country. Okay, so let's say your sales cycle is 6 months. Okay, and that's kind of where you are, know what you're doing, having some experience, having a relationship. So number one is I've doubled the sales cycle. That's number one. Number two is that's not even allowing for setup and startup. So at that point, how much time do you want to add to say, okay, we got to kind of get in and roll up our sleeves and go somewhere, or either do promotions if you have money, or work with an expert like Robert and his team to kind of get you situated, right? So basic things like, hey, our brochure is not in English. Okay, let's start there, right? Hey, we offer this many services here. We go to the U.S. Let's pick maybe a smaller. So that to me is easily another 6 months to a year. Give yourself time. I guess what I would say, be conservative. 2 years, 3 years. their tolerance for pain.
I'd like to add to that, also the fact that most times companies, they end up in the foreign market, what I call through the elevator or the back door. They have a good account here, multinational, they're doing a good job. Oh, please, can you take this back over to headquarters? And because all of a sudden they're at headquarters, they think they're international. Or they think they are proactively seeking to become international. It's two different things. One is a passive action, the other one is in being proactive. And in being proactive, you have to step back, look at your business plan. Is internationalization part of that business plan? But if it's not, most likely, when you have an opportunity back there, you have not made the proper setups to support the delivery, and you'll fail because you will not be able to deliver, and then you lose face. So it's very important that strategic planning accounts for becoming international. It makes business sense strategically for me to go and actually play ball in the first division in the most competitive market as North America. I want to pass the word to Roberto, who wants to say something.
Yeah, perhaps we can think of a couple of different industries that sell something much simpler but with much larger capital outlay, say manufacturing of automobiles. There is a lot of companies that have been very successful. If you look at Toyota, Honda, and they have been in the market for 30, 40 years now. But the European companies, Toyota, Peugeot, and Fiat, for instance, started in the American market and failed. They were there for probably about 10 years. They made a very large commitment, but their product, to paraphrase what was just said, their product did not have the right support, did not have the right reliability. So much that Fiat stands in the United States for fix it again, Tony. Right? So, reliability and a tremendous commitment. And that is true in many other places, but in the US, until the market realizes that you have the right value proposition in a product that can withstand the test of time, price-wise, quality-wise. So it may take a while. And so those guys stayed there for a while. Eventually they left. Others didn't.
Yeah, and I agree. And I would also add to that, you want to have a solid business plan for how you're going to build a business in the States. But then I would advise the laser-like focus be not in actuality building the entire business, but getting one deal. That first deal is so important. And not even just financially, psychologically for you, for your team, for the superiors, for the investors, to get that first deal. Also the feedback. Because, where is that first deal? Is it at the bank? Is it at a Fortune 500 company? Because to me, when you go to market with a selling campaign, it's kind of like a covert survey. Because you're getting a sense of who cares about what I'm selling. Right? No, yes, right? And then we negotiate, you get a sense of what the pricing is probably going to be, right? You get a sense of who really cares. And ideally, after you get the contract signed and have your steak dinner somewhere in New York, and you become buddies with the people, you could say, hey, give us some feedback. Why did you pick us? Why did you not pick the others? And get that feedback and find out, because that is very powerful. Then you're going to say, okay, how can we do that again? That first deal is critical. It'll empower you, empower your team. It's your proof of concept. And the last thing I would say is when I first started my first business, 1985, I remember an attorney, friend of the family who was advising me, saying, put your budget together and be comprehensive, really do your homework. And once you get your budget number, double it, because that's probably what it is. And I remember being like a young know-it-all at the time, saying, it's crazy, that's not, doubling that number, plus I can't afford to double that number. I could, that's enough. And sure enough, he was right. Because as much as we calculated, there was the unknown of what took longer, what was more expensive than we thought, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say you may want to play that game, but at some point, though, you do want to have that marker where you say, you know what? On June 15th, 2013, we're going to sit around the table and have a go, no-go meeting. Do we invest more money in this thing, or do we all go back home?
Just one more thing, Frank, because I see a couple companies here that I know that already have a established outpost in the U.S., like eCorp and like Allegra, which at the end of the day is also very important. We were talking to Navita in the mobile space, and they have a big deal going on with American Airlines. But then they were also at an event at CTIA at the end of March in Orlando. AT&T approached them and said, yeah, where can I call you? Oh, Brazil? Oh, you don't have an office in the U.S.? Okay, when you have an office, come back and look me up. So eventually in your plan, you will need to have physical presence. He wants to know he can pick up the phone and call you. Get your ass over here because I have a problem. Houston, I have a problem.
Yeah, and the good news now is that there's a lot more cost-effective ways to have an office really anywhere, let alone the United States. So it's not like you need to sign a 5-year lease like you used to years ago. And there's clever things you can do with telephones and things like that. So I would say first choice is have a real true presence. You have an office on 7th Avenue or anywhere else, and you have 1 or 2 or 3 people in that office, and they're there and they're hustling away. So if somebody calls up, they can hop in a cab and go there. But that's expensive. That's too expensive. One plan may be called the Regis Group. Get a virtual lease. You pay month to month. And literally $250 a month, maybe even a little bit less, depending on what you use. And then when you have a meeting, you go in town, you meet people there. Your card has that address. Your U.S. mail goes to that address. There's a lot you can do with VoIP, with phones, and having a phone number go there. And then again, just basic things. I told Robert this story. There's a good friend of mine owns a company in Mexico City, does web development. He came to me maybe 2 years ago about wanting to do more business in the States. And when I called him back, and I got an automated voice speaking all Spanish. There was no English, and I don't speak Spanish. So one of the first things I said to him is, you have no presence in the States, and you're not even acknowledging any desire to communicate with an English-speaking audience. So there's some little things you could do right off the bat to kind of make that work. Next slide, please. Please go right ahead.
When we see the data, when we see the data of the United States, they buy more services than products. But it's easier, you do less or be specialized in products. You have a better focus when you are specialized in products. And my question is, the American clients will recognize a value proposition of a service company that provide software development or IT services from, in my case, agribusiness companies, cooperatives. The clients will recognize this kind of value to buy or not, because actually, sometimes I wonder if it's true.
I need help with that question. I'm not sure if I got it.
If I correct me if I'm wrong, Wilson, but you're trying to pinpoint what is the customer's perception in the United States as to the value of buying services or buying a solution-based type of approach with services embedded in it.
Yeah, you told for us that we would have to focus. Less is more, okay? But how to do that with service? With products, it's easier.
Okay, okay, thank you. So it's easy. Okay, so think of it this way. How many verticals do you want to target? One vertical? Pharmaceutical? Automotive?
Agribusiness?
Technology? Agribusiness? Publishing? So I would say 12 is too many. Maybe 5 is too many. Think of where you want to start. I know some very successful, very, very rich people that just focus on the healthcare space. It's good enough for them, and no matter what they do, they still can't. They've got plenty of places to go. It's a multi-billion-dollar marketplace. So when I say less, I mean be able to, in that particular case, focus on a vertical. Let's take software, let's say application development. So not only who you sell to, but what you sell. Do you do all application development? Do you do development and maintenance? Do you do testing? What do you do? It's a very successful Russian outsourcing service provider. Their specialty is testing. That's what they specialize in. Not development, not maintenance, not testing. Within 3 or 4 verticals, that's actually come to me in a moment. Russian-based organization, they have presence in New York.
Luxoft.
Luxoft, thank you. He's good. So that's who it. So that's their specialty. So I love it. And by the way, it took me many years to embrace the less is more. The book that did it is called Focus by a guy named Al Reese. It's a great book. Get that book, Focus by Al Reese. Makes all the arguments. Many of them are very much counterintuitive to what we would think of as smart businessmen. You would look and say, no, that seems like it makes sense. They would say, no. And as the industry becomes more and more competitive, the best way that you can compete is to be a specialist. Do not be a generalist. Because you will get your butt kicked every time. There are very few specialists. Even if you look what the big companies are doing, IBMs, the Wipros, the Infosys, they have separate silos. People chasing verticals. They're vertically aligning. So they're hiring people that know big pharma. They're hiring people, they're building references for big pharma. When they promote, they target, which is not the group over here that's targeting state and local government. So they're taking these big organizations that used to be organized. I think IBM used to be organized like they sell hardware here, they sell software here, they sell services here, they sell PCs here. They cut it a different way, saying, okay, we're going to focus technology on these verticals. More and more organizations are doing it. So it very easily can be done with services. And you know what? We have no choice, because that's how the buyers buy. We have to align with how they're buying. It's less about what we're selling, it's more about what they're buying. Okay, so I put this slide up because I wanted to give you a buyer's perspective. My advice to any offshore, nearshore player is, when you meet someone and you go to shake their hand, do not immediately start to tell them about your company. Because if you say, hi, I'm Frank, and I'm from so-and-so from Brazil, and here's our outsourcing offerings, and we provide the following for the following types of organization, and here's how we do it, and we're going into it, guess what they're thinking about? Guess what words are in their mind? They're thinking about Brazil. I don't even think about Brazil. Outsourcing, Brazil. And by the way, this isn't unique to Brazil. This is what I tell the Russians. This is what I tell the Filipinos. This is what I tell the South Africans. Let's try it over again. Hi, I'm Frank. I'm from Botswana. We specialize in testing and debugging. We have a couple of great clients. I'm going on. What do you think? Wow, is that? Where on the map is that? They do it. So what's my point? My point is, you have to sell your destination. If they don't like your destination, the rest doesn't matter. Destination, sell your company, and then sell you. That's it. You can't skip any of those boxes. You got to sell your destination, then your company, then you. Okay. Now, if you talk to someone that already gets the Brazil thing, maybe they're here. Maybe they're introduced to you by Robert, his vast Rolodex. I thought I had a good Rolodex, then I met Robert. Now I have Rolodex empty. So they get the Brazil thing fine, and you can talk about your company. But I see that as a great challenge. So here's what happens. And this is not technically correct, but this is the way in the IT space, in the States, most buyers look at the world. There's India, there's a bunch of other players out there. And the India thing, they have figured out. And India, and the US thing, pretty much figured out. I mean, there's challenges there, but then for them, there's a bunch of other players who are trying to break in, and that piece of the pie would actually be smaller. trying to say, pick me, pick me, pick me. You know, have you thought, of Poland? Let's talk, come on. You know? And the buyers there saying, oh my gosh, they kind of struggle to figure this all out. So when I see gatherings like this, I see many of the things that Robert and his colleagues are doing in the States to promote, showcase Brazil IT. Yeah, that has to be done. I think of gatherings we've had in the States to get the message across. I remember a dinner we had many years ago. We called it a Taste of Brazil. We had about 20 executives in New York, American Express, Deutsche Bank, Laura Hill. Some great executives and great companies. And we had dinner in a Brazilian restaurant. And the sponsor handed out soccer ball. And what are the flip-flop?
Yeah, Havaianas.
Yeah. And they handed out Brazilian jazz CDs. Great. It was fun. Everybody had fun. And I remember on the way out at the end of the night, as we produced the event, the guy from American Express said to me, this was worthwhile. He said, I never thought of Brazil as an outsourcing destination. Now I want to think about it. They said, that guy could not have said a better thing. That was like, they had a commercial. That would be. So those are things you have to do. Because as much as that company who sponsored that could have done the whole thing around the company, here's who we are, here's what we do, here's what we're great, here's our references, here's our brochure, here's a demo, whatever you want to show. People still think, Brazil, isn't that like beaches where you go for vacations and stuff? So my only point here is your competition may be a little different than you think. It's not only the other vendors, and maybe the other vendors in this room, and the other vendors in the States, but it's all these other regions. So the organizations that will win the most are the ones that do the best job of selling and promoting their part of the world, then their company, and then themselves. You agree, Robert?
Sure, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better.
You're going to have to disagree with something I say. Otherwise, this whole thing looks rigged.
Well, I had to agree on that one. Gloss is looking on, and so is Andre. So if I argue with that one, then I'll lose my job afterwards.
So, okay, so that's it. I won't beat up too much on this slide. But I would say that's what you want to do. In your material, and don't just rely on the other organizations. Do that yourself. In your material, on your website, make sure. Don't take it for granted that people assume. I get it. Okay, let's talk about the 3 R's, one of my favorite topics. So, not only do we track what the vendors are doing and get a sense of best practices on sales and marketing, we also talk to the buyers. And I'm a sales and marketing guy. That's all I've done my whole life. So I started the Outsourcing Institute. I suddenly ended up in this neutral role. It was kind of weird. Kind of felt illegal, actually, to have a sales guy run the world's largest outsourcing network. But we've done our best to earn the role. But it's great to be with the buyers. I've been in some great sessions and meetings where the vendors leave, and I talk to the buyers, and I ask questions, try to learn not only as, I founder guy, but thinking about all my friends on the vendor side. That if they were in this room, what would they ask? So, one of the most common questions I ask is, why did you pick who you picked? And why did you not pick those guys? Why did you pick these guys? So I'm constantly learning. And so one of the things I was able to do over the years is get out to the 3 R's. I call 3 R's of success: relationships, references, and reputation. And I've been tracking this now for years, and it holds true every year. In fact, the banking becomes more and more powerful as the market becomes more hyper-competitive. Next slide, please. So just to expand on this a little bit more. So think of 1994. If somebody in the States wanted to outsource a data center, the thinking would go something like this. Well, let's talk to IBM and EDS, then 1 or 2 other people. Well, who would you want to be? Would you want to be IBM or EDS? Not a bad case. Or would you hope to be one of those other 2 people, whoever they may be? That was the routine. That was the routine deal. The deal that we saw. Data center.